It's no secret that Game Freak's many design choices, most revolving around doubles, tend to be more than a little suspect. However, when it comes to putting together interesting strategies for players to use, they often do a great job. Who can forget the first time they realized Solar Beam doesn't have to charge under sunlight, or that you could safely pair an electric weak Pokemon with a lightning rod Pokemon in doubles? Yeah, this video isn't about those. This is about the strategies Game Freak put in the game that have been complete and utter stinkers. They didn't happen by accident, they were put in there with knowledge, planning, and forethought. We have to wonder if they thought these would actually be used, or they just liked the combination from a lore perspective. The latter is definitely possible. For this video, we're not going by any ascribed intent of the author, but by impact. And the fact that these strategies have had literally zero, zilch, zip, nada impact. Let's jump right into them. Here are 5 of the worst strategies that Game Freak had intended. But before we start, this video is sponsored by Minun, a top 5 language learning app with over 110 million downloads worldwide. It's fall and that means it's back to school time, and some of you probably have language courses to take. Luckily for us, Minun has a back to school sale. Minun is offering 96% off lifetime access. And that's a steal because Minun offers language lessons in over 1,320 language combinations. What do you mean by combinations, you might wonder? Is this Pokemon? Well, Minun offers 41 foreign languages to learn from 33 native languages. So for me, my native tongue is obviously English. So I just inputted that and now I can quickly start several American English to Japanese courses. And Minun is designed in a way to learn language speaking proficiently through daily use. To do so, it has daily lessons where I can build my proficiency in Japanese by taking 10-minute lessons every day. And the best part about it is that a lot of the content on here is practical and focused on conversations from very specific situations that you'd probably find yourself in. So for me, I selected travel as my primary reason for wanting to learn Japanese. And wouldn't you know it, there's travel-specific lessons for me. All of this and more when you download Minun. So if you want to practically steal all of this content and also support the channel to help us produce more content, click our link in the description below to take advantage of Minun's back-to-school sale and get 96% off lifetime access to all languages. And thank you so much to Minun for sponsoring this video. Plusle and Minun are truly awful Pokemon to begin with. Anyone using them in a serious singles or doubles battle almost surely does not have winning as their best interest. So the audacity for Game Freak to demand they use both so that they can be used to activate their unique abilities is really staggering. Now, what is genuinely interesting about this pair is that since Plus requires a partner with the minus ability and vice versa, one cannot be activated without activating the other as well. It is a legitimately interesting concept for 2 strategies to be activated simultaneously like this, through partnership with the other. Sadly, that interest is purely theoretical here, as the second you step into the material reality of the idea, you realize how awful the application in its current form is. The most obvious qualm is that yes, you have to use Plusle and Minun on the same team, which is going to leave you with the worst defensive integrity ever given their non-existent bulk and only decent, not particularly impressive speed. Then, you have to have them on the battlefield at the same time, which is an even bigger commitment. One is worthless without the other, and yet to pair them is to exacerbate their enormous list of weaknesses. That all is clear enough, but the real crime is the benefit you actually get from Plus and Minus. It is simply a 50% boost to special attack, the same as choice specs. Basically a +1 boost. Wow. Yes, it's not functionally the same as +1, as you could theoretically get a +6 and have the plus and minus boost on top of it. Additionally, whatever further boosts you accrue are going to go higher than simply adding a number to +1, because they're coming off of the actual special attack stat that has been raised, not adding to a stage of boosting. Just like a choice band Metagross that boosts its attack through meteor mashing is hitting harder than a non-banded Metagross that boosts its attack twice. A paired Plusle and Minun that are boosting with choice specs or nasty plot would be hitting harder than +3 or +2 respectively. Okay, cool, but that's it? A 50% special attack boost? You are pairing Plusle and Minun in a double battle, 2 frail electric types in a format where Earthquake is around every corner. You are redefining bravery. You should be receiving a Medal of Honor. This is all you get as your reward? 50% special attack? The nerve. Or probably just the beginning of story mode strategy so the player learns how to play double battles in Ruby and Sapphire. But anyways, Plusle and Minun should be so overjoyed that their cheerleading powers should surge through whatever you're playing the battle on and improve your health, wealth, and relationship with your parents. They should be so thrilled to not just be seeing battle, but to be seeing battle together that they should be powering each other up way more than 50%. How about we make it a quasi-special Dragon Dance and they get a 50% speed boost too? Hey, if all those booster energy Pokemon can do it, it's the least these two and you can get for taking such a risk. And while we're at it, they should set Electric Terrain. I don't know what else, but man, it is such a shame for the plus and minus concept to be wasted on such bad Pokemon. Everyone who's ever tried to make Slaking or Regigigas work has had the same amazing idea. Well, if I can just get rid of the ability, all will be gravy. Well, there's nothing to be done for Slaking in singles other than hoping you run into someone using Skill Swap or Gastro Acid and managing to switch Slaking into it. To be completely fair and open to the possibility, these moves do have legitimate applications on some stall teams who want to remove Magic Guard from Toxic Calm Minders or Poison Heal from Gliscor, but it would still be a conspiracy of the most outrageous happenstance if you were to pair Slaking with these Pokemon just so you could switch it into these moves on the off chance you run into such a matchup, because at some point you'd surely realize you could just skip the Slaking part and run more Pokemon like these actually consistent ones. Plus, some teams run Worry Seed as their tactic against such Pokemon, and that doesn't work against Truant. So that's out. Regigigas is less convoluted for sure, but no less stupid. You have to wait out 5 agonizing turns, which will not work no matter how much you try and protect and or substitute your way through the problem. Oh, and for both of these, ability swap doesn't last once you switch out. And as much as we think of these Pokemon as unstoppable monsters only hindered by their ability, being able to win the game or close to it on one switch-in is not the deck of reality either. Okay, so no dice for singles, but doubles, your teammate can do it. You can just get right to your righteous destruction as you skill swap or whatever the ability away. It's foolproof. I should know. Cypher Head Evice used this same strategy against me in Pokemon Coliseum and cleaned my clock real good. My unpurified Shadow Tropius stood no chance and got Crush Clawed into oblivion. It helped that Evice had baton past the Slaking of Swords Dance with his Scizor previously. Now that's the strategy. Anyway, indeed, the use of Skill Swap Truant in this final boss battle illustrates the intent of Game Freak behind its existence, especially as it takes place in the same generation as the introduction of all these elements. Sadly, it was not one of their brighter moments, because every turn is incredibly important in doubles, and the turn it takes to switch or suppress the hindering ability is risky. Number one, the strategy is the most obvious thing in the world to see coming, and so it's easy to target it and shut it down, especially because Slaking or Regigigas cannot protect to keep themselves safe, since then they'd also be protecting themselves from the ability change. Number two, this risk is not worth the reward, since even if you do pull it off, which you might, but not without sustaining heavy, significant damage, as previously mentioned, Slaking and Regigigas are not actually so ridiculously unstoppable as to completely dominate the rest of the battle single-handedly, especially not in a doubles format when they don't use spread moves, and especially when their normal typing leaves them almost entirely bereft of resists. Thus, you are still left with the question of why, without having a good answer. The closest you'll get is, well, because I want to make Slaking or Regigigas work, which is cool and all, but not really competitively sound. You know what does work and establish itself thusly? Regigigas alongside Galarian Weezing and its neutralizing gas. You know why? The effect is automatic. Regigigas is ready to go from turn 1, and G Weezing doesn't have to dedicate itself to taking a turn to get rid of its ailment. The threat is right there. It really is all the difference in the world, and no cutesy attempt to manually remove the ability can match it. Okay, we actually have to give Game Freak credit here, both for the ambition and the complexity that goes into the dynamics here. So much so that we had to look them up and spent quite some time figuring them out. The reason the pledges are here is because they aren't used just about ever, because they are complicated and very, very specific in terms of actually pulling them off, meaning you're going to be incredibly hard-pressed to actually fit them on a team, much less use them in a battle. The exception was, of course, Patrick Broderick, who top cut at 2014 Virginia Regionals with it, using a team with Greninja, Venusaur, and Mega Charizard Y for incredible flexibility. The pledges have a Plusle and Minun-esque dynamic in how one of the two elements need the other to function, except of course the Pokemon aren't nearly as bad. In fact, they're quite good, but they are restricted to starter Pokemon only. Well, and Mew, but that's not allowed in VGC. Anyway, both Pokemon you have on the field have to have your selected 2 Water, Fire, and Grass pledge, and that's where you both use your respective pledge on the same turn. Here's where it gets tricky. Instead of both Pokemon attacking with their respective pledge, the Pokemon moving first, and in exchange, the second Pokemon to move will attack with a pledge that is strengthened to 150 base power and receives a unique secondary effect. Which pledge is used depends on which of the 2 pledges hits the other super effectively. For instance, if Blastoise and Charizard use Water Pledge and Fire Pledge respectively, Water is super effective against Fire, so Water Pledge will be the one used. Remember though, it's still the slower Pokemon that attacks even if it's not necessarily their pledge. For instance, if Superior and Samura are using Grass and Water Pledge, Grass is super effective at Water, so Grass Pledge will be used. but Samurott is the slower Pokemon, so it will be the one using Grass Pledge. Phew. Yes, it took us quite some time to wrap our heads around that. Oh, and we haven't even mentioned their spectacular 4-turn field effects. Grass Pledge quarters the speed of all opposing Pokemon, basically the pre-Gen 7 Paralysis speed drop. Water Pledge doubles the chance of secondary effects from every move used by one's own team, basically Serene Grace for everybody. Fire Pledge damages all non-fire types on the opposing team for 12.5% damage per turn, basically the same as Magma Storm's chip damage Gen 6 and on. So the potential is certainly incredibly interesting, but pulling the pledges off is incredibly convoluted. The pledge type you want to use has to be the super effective one of the two, and it goes off at the faster Pokemon speed, but it's going to be the slower Pokemon and its special attack that actually uses the move. It just gets more and more specific out of an already specific premise. Really, the pledges are on this list because the concept is too clever for its own good. The strategy is more or less obscure. Most players barely know it exists, and certainly don't know how they work. They just know it's complicated and uber specific, i.e. not worth the hassle. This strategy isn't double specific, but it's really goofy. Rollout is a physical rock move that doubles in base power with each consecutive hit, which sounds cool until you realize that it starts at 30 BP. So the first turn is nothing, and the second turn 60 base power is pretty bad too, even if you're factoring in stab. If you can make it to that third turn, you're in business. But you know how sometimes even one turn is too much to get rid of your Slaking or Regigigas' ability? Yeah, nobody is giving you these 3 turns to build up your rollout. Note, by the way, that we said hit, not use, because yeah, that super fun 90% accuracy can throw off your whole operation and make you reset to your pitiful original power. Game Freak's goofiness doesn't end there though, because they give you another method of doubling Rollout's power. Use Defense Curl beforehand. Yes, Defense Curl. That move you get rid of as soon as possible on any in-game Pokemon. Well, okay, Chansey has a slight reason to use Defense Curl over Reflect and RBY, but it's also not setting up a Rollout sweep. If the proposition of several free turns for Rollout was preposterous, setting it up with Defense Curl was even more absurd. Not least because you were running a moveset with Defense Curl and Rollout. Even the most die-hard Shuckle fan, the trainer from Olivine City who gives you the Shuckle as protection from your rival, would think twice about taking up half of a moveset on something so frivolous. So do nothing in the hopes your opponent would simply lie there and take it. For the concept to actually go anywhere, you need to give it some actual power that didn't take forever to get going, but you couldn't just have it immediately explode into a world destroyer either. Yeah, this one was not well thought out. Weak moves are fine as early game fodder like Tackle, but seeing as this can balloon into the strongest attack in the game, i.e. the famous calc where Shuckle does something like 4 trillion damage to Lediba, it feels like it was supposed to have been a bit more than that. Finally, another non-double selection, but one of the most classic of all noob traps. Ever since Gen 1, Dream Eater has seemed like a perfect complement to the sleep moves many great Pokemon carry. At 100 base power, it's actually stronger than the go-to move Psychic, and it heals half of the stronger damage it's dishing out. Sign me up! Why did Jinx and Exeggutor not use this move non-stop? Well, it's not really that surprising, at least not if you know Sleep Claws exist. If you were one of those kids playing Gen 4 Wi-Fi battles using your Action Replay Darkrai to Dark Void everything in sight without any idea you're supposed to limit it to 1 at a time, then yeah, Dream Eater seems pretty good. In fact, it was the quintessential strategy. To see such history in action, see Maryland versus Untouchable. However, for the sophisticated, refined, and classy among us who respected the law of sleep, Dream Eater quickly slips from our minds, as do those forgettable dreams we often have that Hypno allegedly dislikes eating. The problem with Dream Eater is that it only works if the opponent stays in and lets it, or if Sleep Claws doesn't exist. Neither are present in the competitive scene, because sleep is so insanely busted it necessitates the claws, and leads some players to demand a universal sleep ban like ones enacted in Gens 5 and 9, but that's neither here nor there, and players must ensure they keep the claws active until the sleeper is gone, yet they'll just have something else get shut down again. After you sleep something, you can't use your sleep move again, so you are effectively playing with 3 moves. It is beyond wasteful to have another move slot that you will basically never use, especially because yes, the healing is nice, but it's not necessary. The power is nice, but it's not necessary. Psychic gets the job done with amazing consistency. Dream Eater does nothing but convince you it's going to do something before it lets you down. That's the real dream getting eaten. Now, in Game Freak's defense, they made up for this with the addition of the superior Nightmare in GSC, which has a legitimately great niche for punishing all the sleeping Pokemon for 25% per turn in a way no attacking moves can. If anything, the passive damage of Nightmare helps make the attacking moves stronger. Additionally, much later on, they take the abusing status opponent's angle further with Hex. And that's it. We appreciate the many cool strategies Game Freak's thrown out there, but there are some real clunkers we thought were deserving of having some light fun poked at them. If nothing everything else though, our appreciation for the pledges has increased immensely, and we hope this inspires someone to get out there at VGC and make them work. Let us know if there are any strategies you think we should have included on this list, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And thank you so much to our Platinum patrons. Thank you to Alex Sable, Anthony Belval Renault, Bingleton, Daniel Isbeast, Dr. Mint, Funky, Glitcherton, Gustavo, Hal, Nurse Jake, Jack G, Lord of the Rabbit, Pretzel SP, Raven Daytona Ring, Ray Ray, Skylaria, Soares and Croxon, Shiwei Miji, Stoneface Colin, and Quetzalcoatl Northropi for their major support of our videos. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.